Hey guys, I'm here with Lyndon again in the kitchen for a great, delicious recipe for a batter used for what?
We are going to make dosas today.
Dosas. Cool. So take it away and then let us know what's up.
Alright, here we go. So, dosas. What are dosas? They're an Indian bread of sorts, maybe flatbread you might call them, prepared in a multitude of ways. They qualify as both vegan and gluten-free, high in fiber, high in minerals and vitamins and protein as well. And they're relatively easy to make once you get the hang of it. Very versatile, as I said, multitude of recipes. You can use them like tortillas, like wraps, like crepes, or even like pancakes. So they can be sweet, savory, whatever. And it's easy, just a few ingredients to get the basic recipe going. So first, here I have soaked overnight equal parts of rice and lentils. The lentils are of two varieties in equal portions. I did red and green lentils, or French green lentils. And you can use a variety of different substitutions in the lentils. The original, more authentic recipe that I based this off of insisted on 3 varieties of lentils, but I found the texture and the consistency of the batter is just fine. As long as you basically have the right mixture between the rice and the lentils, it should come out just fine. It's all about getting the right amount of protein versus fiber and water content, essentially. There's very little fat in this recipe, so it's also low fat, by the way. So we've soaked these overnight, drain the water, rinse, and drain again, and then we're at this stage here. And we can then prepare our batter by blending it. Okay, so this consistency is looking pretty smooth, and it's very thin. That's how I like to prepare my thin dosas. I would make this a little thicker if I were going to use it for a wrap, or definitely thicker for a pancake. And at this point, you can even blend in a number of different things if you want to modify the texture a little bit to make it more like a certain other kind of bread. Like you can add a little bit of oil. If you want to make them crispier, you can add a little bit of fat like oil or butter, and then also sugar. Careful with that stuff. And a little bit of salt maybe. I don't put any salt in this because I'm going to put some savory vegetables in it later. So now we've got our batter and we're ready to throw it on the stove. First thing I'm going to do is use this unheated non-stick skillet to cook a very thin cracker-like dosa. This works well if you have 2 pans in particular and you can rotate off between them. And then spread it evenly in a circle just by using gravity until we have a thin layer of batter over most of the pan's surface. It's almost transparent, and maybe a little bit thicker at the edges is okay. So once it's stopped running around for the most part, you can then begin to heat it, and the result you may be pleased with. So you can see about how much batter I've poured in there. It's a very thin layer. So let's see what that does. This is something like papadum, I think they call it, which is a lentil and rice cracker that you'll find in Indian restaurants. I don't know that this is the exact recipe, but this is just one way I like to use the dosa batter. It's lentils and rice, and it seems an awful lot like paparam, but maybe an Indian chef or cook would disagree. So this is my own non-traditional version. One way to cook the dosa. I've got it on medium heat here. So just keep an eye on dosas, especially when they're thin. They can cook really fast, and they'll just lift right off the pan at that point. When they're not ready to go, they won't budge, so don't try. And certain skillets can make this recipe a disaster. So I've tested this particular nonstick skillet already on this batter, and it works great. So a good rule of thumb for the readiness is to look for some browning to begin to happen. Once you see that the browning is closing in around maybe the edges, you will also start to see the dosa lift off the pan a little bit. If you look very closely at the moist parts, you'll see it start to raise, and that's doing all the work for you, basically. And we're very close. It's almost ready here. How exciting. So, now I think it's ready. It's lifting up off the edges all on its own, and I can see that. So it's probably ready to grab right now. Take a look. You can see it lifting off the edges there. And let's see how it does. Look at that. Now that is a cracker. You can hear it crunchy, crispy, and beautiful. Now I could have let it brown a little bit more for a different flavor, but that is pretty much what I'm going for right there. That's a beautiful way to enjoy a little bit of maybe tamarind chutney or mint chutney, as they typically serve paparam with, I believe. But do anything you want that's appropriate. It's all yours. It's ready to go. So notice that it's not perfectly beautiful and circular. You know, your first dosa may just not turn out perfect. If I would have poured a little bit more dough to get it just to the edges of the pan, it would have been a nice, beautiful, perfect circular dosa. So the next step for your next dosa is improve a little bit on that last one, and let your pan cool, or grab your second pan if you have it, and then begin again.